Hi, I'm Leon Charney, and this is the Leon Charney Report. And who better to start off the fall season with the fashionable Carolyn Maloney, who is a Democratic congresswoman from the east side, and Astoria. She'll tell you exactly where she is. She's got half the country out there. She's charming. She's elegant. She used to be in the Assembly, and she's an outspoken person for New York and New York State, New York City. Carolyn, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Leon. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
I haven't seen you since the convention.
I know. That was quite a convention, wasn't it?
Did you have a good time?
I had a great time, but what's really better are the polls there. Looks like President Clinton is galloping towards victory. A 20-point lead is almost unheard of at this point in an election, and in places like Virginia, Alabama, Utah, Nevada,
Florida,
all of these places.
If he takes them in Kansas, we know it's really over, right?
I think it's already all over.
What was the most impressive thing to you at this convention, really? We were both there as delegates, I must disclose that. But what did you feel?
I felt very unified as a party, and very directed not only to reelect President Clinton, but to elect a Democratic Congress. I thought the president's speech outlined a roadblock of where he wants to go to the 21st century, or the bridge to the 21st century. I particularly enjoyed hearing from our own New York governor, Mario Cuomo, who was...
Do you think he did well?
I think he did very well, and he's probably the most eloquent speaker in the country on a liberal urban agenda.
There's no question, but the national press really didn't pick up on him, did they?
Well, he didn't speak during prime time,
right.
So he didn't have a good slot to speak in. And I certainly thought a high point was Vice President Gore and Mrs. Clinton and Mrs. Gore.
I thought Gore's speech was very sensitive. You couldn't hear a pin drop in the whole auditorium.
Many people were crying, Leon.
Yeah, a lot of people crying. Now, after you read some pundits, which we don't like to read all the time, they became critical of him. They said, well, here's a guy who was crying about tobacco and lungs and cancer and problems, and then they find out that he was a tobacco farmer. There's no civility left in this world with politicians, is there?
No, it's it's a rough field to go into, and
Charlie Rangel, good friend of yours, good friend of mine, told me that the one thing he really misses now, because he's been there, 20 years, 25 years, he misses the civility. He said, look, I could disagree with the Republican, I could disagree with them, but we all were civil. Now it's really harsh. It's very tough, isn't it?
Many of the people that are retiring mention that in their statements, that the lack of a civility and is one of the reasons that they're leaving. When you speak about my good friend Charlie Rangel, if and when the Democrats take over
Ways and Means,
he will be the chairperson of Ways and Means, and that is really big for New York. That's tremendously important to have a friend in an important committee, one of the most, if not the most important committee. It'll be tremendously important for New York.
New York City's doing pretty well. They have Denny Farrell as Ways and Means in Albany, and Shelley Silver, the Speaker, both from New York City. Never happened before, did it?
I used to work for the New York State Assembly, as you know, Leon, many years ago, and I never thought that we would have a speaker from Manhattan. It was always dominated by the outer boroughs. So I was very thrilled when my friend Sheldon Silver was elected, and I didn't think that it was possible given the way that the politics worked when I was there. But as you said, Denny Farrell's chairman of Ways and Means, again, a committee that used to be very dominated by the outer boroughs.
I'm interested in sociologically something that is fascinating, I think. We know that Clinton has a little of a character issue because the negatives on him are terrific on his character. But as you measure his negatives, his poll rises. Can you explain that to me?
Well, I think the bottom line is people are interested in where he wants to take America, what his vision of the future is, and where he wants to lead us. And whether you like or dislike President Clinton, you cannot argue with the facts, which are the achievements of his administration. And we have an economy which a Republican or a Democrat would be very, very proud to post and claim as their own. We just released the unemployment and employment statistics for the last quarter, week before last, and unemployment is at a 7-year low at 5.1%.
And no inflation.
2.7% inflation.
That must have gone to shul a lot, you know.
And when you combine it with the so-called misery index of inflation, unemployment, and mortgage rates, it's at a 28-year low. And as a woman in Congress who works very, very hard on women's issues and children's issues, I was particularly pleased to see that the employment of women is at a record high in the history of this country at 57%. On Friday, the stock market is booming. The interest rates are not going up on, I don't believe, and it's just an incredible economy.
Do you think Dick Morris helped the employment?
I think that President Clinton's leadership, particularly in reducing the deficit and moving the country forward, it was a very tough vote. Many of my best friends in my freshman class lost their reelections over that particular vote, but he took a bold step and really took hold of the economy, reduced the deficit. I was reading a report that was written by President Bush's economic advisors before he left office, and the deficit was reduced 60%, as you know, under Clinton, to $117 billion, which is rosier than any prediction that the Bush economic team put forward. So the economy is improving. We have Money magazine and Cranes and all types, even Greenspan himself, complimenting President Clinton and the Democrats in their bold leadership in reducing the deficit and controlling the economy and putting faith back into the economy. And we have a very, very strong economic growth.
Tell me what it's like. There's a tight vote in Congress, and the president wants your vote. How does he charm you?
Well, actually, that happened in the first Congress. In the first Congress, on his plan to raise taxes and reduce the deficit, I voted against it and actually came out with a report that I put into the congressional record that night that said that I wanted it changed in 4 or 5 ways. One was that the ratio of tax increases to spending cuts should be a 1-for-1, $1 for every tax increase for every spending cut. The president's original program was $3 of tax increases for every spending cut. Secondly, the energy tax. I wanted that removed, and I didn't like the politics of it. Every time I turned around, people like Congressman Foley, who was then the Speaker, would exempt the aluminum industry in Washington State. Well, but in New York, there's no industry to exempt, so every time these barons were exempting an industry, it was just going to be more taxes on rental and residence and high-rise buildings with their energy tax. Thirdly, the tax on outside income of senior citizens. They began taxing at $25,000. Well, $25,000 may be a lot of money in Arkansas. It's not in New York City. My friends who live on an income of $25,000 are really on the edge. And I argued that should be raised, that they should not be taxed at that level. And I had a couple of other things. And the president called me several times, and I told him exactly what I told you. I said, you have $3 of tax increases for every dollar of spending cuts. He didn't argue the point of it, that I was opposed to the energy tax. I didn't think it was fair to my constituents or the country, or that would help the economy. And the taxation on senior citizens was very unfair. I just told him what I felt. And at one point, my husband called, and this is a true story. He called me and they said, you can't talk to Carolyn. She's on the phone with the president, and Vice President Gore is on hold. So I just went out and I voted against it, and I was very, very much attacked. And I think it was really, really an attack unfairly on women, because they were just saying, who does she think she is? Who attacked you? Oh, all kinds of people attacked me, and they were saying that I should have voted for it, but I wasn't elected to just run along with the crowd, and I voted my conscience. And 2 weeks later, this is the best part of the story, 2 weeks later, the Senate said they wouldn't vote for the bill because,
Your reasons.
number one, it should be a 1-for-1 instead of a 3-for-1 in relation to tax increases to tax cuts. The New York Post credited me for raising, on the front page, for raising the level of taxation and protecting senior citizens. And they got rid of the energy tax. There were some other things that we were working on that we didn't get in, but I figured 3 out of 4 was not bad. They were hailed as heroes who stood up and fought for the country. You know, yeah, and here I was attacked. So if you're a senator and you know, they attacked me. I shouldn't have done. But it was a tremendous gamble. But I was absolutely right, and it was. I'm very proud of what I did and the role that I played in trying to change the budget. And I think we got a better budget because of that. And that's what a democracy is about.
Was Clinton angry? Did he put pressure on you?
Well, he just called me up and asked me to vote for it. And
when you said no, what did he say?
Well, what do you expect him to say? He just listened. I gave the reasons. He didn't argue back. He didn't argue back that it was that a $3 of tax increases to $1 of spending cut was fair.
So he just hung up the phone and said thank you.
He didn't argue on the energy tax that it was you know, a tremendously fair tax, and he didn't argue on the taxation of senior citizens. I said, in my city, in the district that I represent, an income of $25,000 is borderline.
Good
I
for
mean,
you.
and it should be raised. And
did you get invited to the Christmas party?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you stood your ground.
But then when he changed it, I endorsed it and called up Vice President Gore and told him I was going to vote for it. Before they even called me, I just said because they had changed it, and then I helped him pass it.
That's fair. We're going to cut for a commercial break. We'll come right back with the feisty and industrious Carolyn Maloney, who is running for her 3rd term now, I think. Am I correct, Carolyn?
3rd term.
You've been there 4 years?
Yes,
So this is going to be 2 more. You've been endorsed by everybody, I assume, right?
Well, Leon, have you endorsed me?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Carolyn Maloney. I don't know who she's running against, but we love her. We'll be back.
New York, Chicago, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Boston, Bahrain, Cairo, Saudi Arabia, Moscow, Tokyo, Madrid, Paris, Geneva, Rome, Washington.
You're doing very well.
Steve, fast, quickly, your emotions before you miss the plane.
You got that 100%.
There were missiles fired at Tel Aviv, and now the reports are confirmed. What is going on, actually?
Hold it.
Okay, hold it.
You've seen some things that I'm sure will make you chill. Question, why did Israel not retaliate? She's found the house totally destroyed.
All on the Leon Charney Report, every Sunday at 5 p.m.
We're back. We're speaking with Carolyn Maloney, who is the Democratic Congresswoman from Manhattan and Astoria. Where else, Carolyn? Brooklyn, too?
Astoria, Queens, and Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Greenpoint. Wow, you got a big area. Is that the silk stocking district?
Yes, it is. The legendary silk stocking district, and a small portion of the west side, and Astoria, Queens, and Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
You had a legendary win when you first came in there. I remember that fight. Bill Green, who was an old stalwart congressman, Republican congressman, and you beat him with 4 pesos and 3 rubles, you know. It was an amazing upset. And poor Bill Green, we haven't seen him since, you know. It's like Lou Lehrman. You remember Lou Lehrman? He ran against Mario Cuomo.
And almost won.
And almost won. Really? Whatever happened to him? Nobody knows.
Well, he's out there.
Running a drugstore or something, right? It's amazing politics. Carolyn has a bill called the Nazi War Crime Disclosure Act, which is something that we would be very interested in, because what she's really saying is, Kurt Waldheim, you son of a gun, you took $1 million in the pension fund from the UN, which we supported, the United States, and we know what you are, so how come you're getting all that money? Is that a paraphrase of what you're trying to do?
But what the bill would do is open up the files in the CIA and in other agencies on Nazi criminals. And it's 51 years later. There's no reason to keep this information secret. It's no longer a national security issue, and there's a lot of revisionist history taking place. And it's important for us to not only learn from what happened and know who were the collaborators, but know the role of our own government, and also to have an accurate history of what happened. And it's interesting that when we were having a hearing on the bill, which was reported out of the Government Reform and Oversight Committee, the same week of the hearings, Kurt Waldheim published his memoirs, at which he said that he was a victim of members of the Jewish faith in America who wrongly accused him of war crimes, yet there are documents that show that he signed deportation slips for many, many people, not only members of the Jewish faith, but Greeks and Italians, and deported them to war camps and to concentration.
He's not in the Hall of Fame of good guys.
But here he was writing a book revising history. So I mean, let's get the information straight right out of our own files. And I happen to really believe that if my bill had been law, he would never, ever have been elected as the Secretary of the United Nations. He would never have held that position.
How tough is it to move a bill like that?
It's very difficult, even though...
Why?
I tell you, Leon, I have great respect for any bill that can pass the United States Congress and get 435 people to vote for it. It's difficult because, number one, the CIA is objecting to it. The most secretive of agencies wants to continue to keep these records secret. There's absolutely no reason why they should. We have been negotiating with their staffs for the last 2 weeks, trying to get their approval so we can pass it on the floor of the House. The two senior senators from New York, Senator Moynihan and Senator D'Amato, are the sponsors in the Senate. And in the final analysis, if we can't get the CIA's approval, I think we should just overrule them and pass it with a vote on the floor.
Tough. We had a fellow on this show who wrote a book called The Secret War Against the Jews. His name is John Loftus, an Irish Catholic, which is something you might be, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. And he was a Nazi investigator for the Justice Department, and he went into the CIA files, and he found tremendously sensitive material there, and he put it into this book, and he got obsessed by it. He said it's full of things that none of us would believe. So you may be onto something here that you don't even know. It may open up a tremendous box of information that the public really has a right to know. Mm-hmm. And they always sing it's national security. It'd be interesting to see if you can get this through. How long will it take for us to know?
Well, we expect to have 3 more weeks of Congress to be adjourned.
You're going to try and get it through this?
Yes, absolutely. We're working very, very hard to get it through this session. A number of scholars have come to my office, likewise, who have tried to get information. I mentioned specifically Professor Herstein from the University of South Carolina, who has done a lot of research and will bring documents in to prove certain things, and he wants more information, and they will just stonewall him and they won't give him the information. A.M. Rosenthal of the New York Times has written a series of articles in support of the legislation. He calls it long overdue and needed and necessary, and it should have passed long ago. And I couldn't agree more with his statement.
So what do? Have to round up the people to vote for it one by one? How do you do that? How do you get a bill passed in the Congress? Most people don't know.
First, you have to pass it out of the subcommittee. You have to pass it out of the subcommittee.
Which subcommittee is that?
It was in the government reform, it was in the government management, information, and technology.
That you're a member of?
Yes, and Congressman Horn from California, who is the chairperson of it, has been very helpful, and he likewise supported it and held a series of hearings on it. It then passed to the major committee, or the prime committee, which is government reform and oversight, chaired by Congressman Klinger. He likewise supported the bill and has supported it to pass it. We have over 50 co-sponsors in the United States Congress that have joined me in sponsoring the legislation and saying that it's important that you pass it. Then you need to get it to the floor. And Congressman Horn is willing to move it to the floor, but the CIA is objecting. And you have to then get the approval of the Intelligence Committee, which it has to go through, and they are reviewing it. And it reaches the point whether or not the members of Congress will be willing to just overrule the CIA. They have come forward with some areas that they would like the bill changed. We have agreed to some changes, but some of the changes that they want would absolutely gut the bill. So we're not going to go every change that they want, but like every piece of legislation, oftentimes it's a compromise. It's coming forward with taking into account the concerns of other people, and we're willing to take into account some of their concerns, but some are just
All right,
totally
but
unrealistic.
Roll me back for 1 minute, Carolyn. 3 years ago, you never thought about a bill like this, right? What initiated that feeling in you to try and bring a bill like this about?
I read a story about it in the New York Times. A.M. Rosenthal wrote about some people trying to get information out of the CIA on Waldheim and others, and having documentation that proved that they were Nazi collaborators.
So you were moved by that article?
The article showed the problem, and then I started researching it, and I called the individuals that he mentioned in his column that had been involved with the issue, and they came in and they talked to me, and we drafted a bill, and we introduced it. And I introduced it in the last Congress, and I introduced it again in this Congress. Then I had to work on the chairman to get his approval. And
the chairman of your committee?
Yeah, to get him to approve it and to hold hearings on it.
If he doesn't like it, it's out? Is that it?
You have to convince the chairman to hold...
That's the power of the chairman in Congress. Those people don't know how Congress works, but that chairman...
And then you had to get the chairman of the full committee to support it, Congressman Klinger, which he did. And now we're working...
your leadership too, right? Your leadership has to agree to bring it to the floor.
And the Republican. Right now, the floor schedule is controlled by...
Newt Gingrich.
By Newt Gingrich.
You remember Newt.
And I haven't spoken to him directly, but Mr. Horn says that he is supportive and he is willing to bring it to the floor.
My guess is that he would, if I had to take a guess about Newt Gingrich. That's an issue I don't think he'd want to fight. But tell me a little bit about Newt Gingrich. How's it feel to be in Congress with Newt Gingrich? Let's see, you went in the first term, so you had Foley there. He was your leader, and you were a Democrat, so you get better committees, better assignments, the whole thing is better. Now you're in the minority, you're backbenchers. How's that feel?
Well, it's been a very difficult year. We, in many ways, win the argument, win the debate, and lose the vote on the floor. I remember one of the first votes was a rescission bill, which was a rollback, a bill that cut programs in the previous budget, and out of a $17 billion rollback, $13 billion came out of the height of urban areas. They have passed 14 anti-choice bills. They have gutted the environment laws. As a former teacher, I've been amazed at their attack on education. And certainly from an urban area, the funding formulas have been very unfair to New York City. So the contrast of having gone in the 103rd Congress with the Democratic president, and I must tell you it was thrilling to pass the Family and Medical Leave Act, to pass the Brady Bill, to ban assault weapons, to put in the budget serious funding for women's health needs such as breast cancer research. And then in contrast, they have tried to repeal the ban on assault weapons. They say they're pro-family. How can you be pro-family and Uzi, and pro AK-47. They've tried to roll that back. There are no longer earmarks in the National Institute of Health on women's health needs. They gutted the Title IX, which is equality of treatment in sports. And here the women did so well in the Olympics, and they talked about how women having sports in high school and college was so important. Well, they took out the enforcement mechanism for equality of treatment in sports, equality of treatment in education, the funding for the Glass Ceiling Commission that tracks whether women are moving into other important positions. And I think the environment, to me, is so incredibly important. That should be one area of national importance that we should all care about. And they've gutted the environment enforcement laws, cut the enforcement by a third, have really, at one point they passed a law that said no more rules and regulations for a year. I mean, I thought maybe we should continue testing water. No more national standards for testing water. I mean, if there was ever a national priority, it's got to be clean water. All right,
we're going to cut for a commercial break after that commercial for Newt Gingrich, and we'll be right back with Carolyn Maloney, who is a Democrat, and Newt is a Republican. And she just told you some of the reasons she did not enjoy working with Newt, and we'll continue. We'll talk about the welfare bill, though. That's an important bill. I don't know how Carolyn voted, but a lot of people in New York, when I was with the delegation, were pretty upset about it. We'll be right back. We're back. We're here with Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney from Manhattan, Democrat Manhattan, and she is Silk-Stocking, Greenpoint, Astoria. She covers all bases. Let's see, Queens, Manhattan, and Brooklyn. Boy, you've got to be pretty ambidextrous to do all those things. A lot of interesting people, You have high net worth to the lowest net worth people, don't you?
Yes.
So it's fascinating. Tell me about the welfare bill. I understand you voted against it. This was Clinton's, whatever it was, Dick Morris's bill, whoever it was. And you said no. What are you going to do with these children after 5 years? What's going to happen to those kids?
Well, it's a totally unrealistic and I believe dangerous bill and unrealistic. It places a cap of after 2 years you must have a job and an absolute limit of 5 years. But as we talked about earlier, the unemployment rate in the country for skilled workers is at 5.1%. In New York City, it's much higher. And welfare recipients are unskilled workers. There's not enough money for job training or for public service jobs in the event that they can't find work. So what happens to these people? I think the major question is what happens to a mother or father who is playing by the rules, trying to find work, and for whatever reason can't. They are then thrown off the rolls. I assume their children then are put in foster care. How does that help anyone? It's not a well thought out bill, and I believe that it will cause more problems than it attempts to solve. I think everyone agrees that the welfare system has not worked and it needs to be changed, but this is not a step in the right direction. And I think the fact, Leon, that so many of the people have just resigned last week, Mary Jo Bain, Mr. Primus, they all left because they know that this bill is an embarrassment.
Why did he sign that bill? He's a Democratic president. He's for libertarian views, allegedly, and yet he goes and signs a basic Republican bill. What was that, Dick Morris?
Well, I was.
Well, no, you can't blame Dick
Morris.
Very
disappointed in his leadership on this, or lack thereof of leadership. I still support him. I hope he gets reelected, but I was very disappointed in him. I think it's important to note that New York City's Mayor Giuliani came out against the bill, as well did Governor Pataki.
Because they're afraid that the load will come to the states and the city.
And one thing that we have to remember as New Yorkers, we send more money to Washington than what comes back.
Don't I know that?
And now they're going to cap what is able to come back to our city, and it's not a well thought out bill. And I'm not predicting that it's going to throw people out on the street. I think in reports around the country it already is. It's already happening where people are running out of money and putting people out in the street.
Did you get a call from Uncle Bill on this one too?
No, I did not.
He knew New York. Moynihan is very much against this bill. Charlie Rangel's on the show. He's really against this bill. A lot of his people are going to be hit very hard in his district. But how do they rationalize it? They say it can be modified. In a sense, it's funny. Clinton says,
And it's going to affect all of us
I
because
signed a
we
bad
will.
bill, and yet I'm going to rectify it. Isn't that what he says? I mean,
That's what he says, but he can't rectify it
Well-
unless he has a Democratic Congress, and that's why it's very important to elect a Democratic House and elect Dick Gephardt Speaker, and hopefully Newt will be back in Georgia eating
All
peaches.
right, tell me what it's like
retired.
to work with. Do you know Newt at all? You meet him much?
He's rarely on the floor. He's not there much.
You don't interface with him too much.
Not that much.
Not a lot of cocktail parties with
No.
Newt. Better to go with Charlie Rangel. Well, you were there for the first Congress, so you can really tell me the differences. Was there a tremendous difference in civility when they came in? They seemed to come in like hound dogs, these Republicans, like they're going to take over the place. I mean, I've never seen a political experience like that. You know, I worked in the Senate for 6 years, and in the 70s, and no one was that vituperative and so angry. I mean, the atmosphere was tough, wasn't it?
It was very tough, particularly when they passed so many policies that are harmful to the city that I represent. I was thrilled in the 103rd Congress, for the first time in 12 years, federal aid to the city of New York went up instead of down. And funding formulas were changed in ways that were fair to New York City. Very quickly they started changing all that and shortchanging mass transit, really gutting education formulas and education, really hurting children and families. In one area, the Medicare, one of their first proposals was a $270 billion cut in Medicare. So it has been one fight every single day, but I think we're turning it around. They closed down the government twice, and finally,
I think that reverberated.
I think it did. I think it did. During that period, I remember getting a phone call from a group of business people in Hungary who wanted to come to America for an exchange program on investment, and they wanted their visas, and I was telling them they couldn't get a visa because the government had closed down. They're saying, wait a minute, I spent my whole life fighting communism, and now we have a free exit, and now I can't get in your country because the government is closed down? I had a woman come to my office who had come to New York on a sentimental journey to go to Ellis Island to see the names of her parents etched there in the monument. She couldn't go because it was closed. And I had some constituents whose children did not go back to school, back to college, because of the uncertainty of their parents' job. They had lost their job and they shut down. They didn't know if they were going to lose it or if they were going to open up. So it was I think it really backfired on the Republicans.
It's interesting how strong you are, because part of your district is Silk Stocking, which is mega millionaires, a lot of very wealthy people there. And they probably are for tax cuts and for a lot of things that the Republicans talk about, and yet you win the election. So maybe there's a liberal feeling in these people, or maybe they don't vote. But it's an interesting...
They vote, but they're very intelligent. And you don't solve a problem by creating one. And any thinking person can look at the welfare bill and see that it's not going to solve the problem. It's going to create more problems, particularly for our city and for our state.
So I'm enigmatized now. I don't understand why Bill Clinton didn't sign that bill. Do you? Is it just politics?
I don't understand
people
it.
like you talk so strongly. People like Charlie Rangel talk strongly. Nadler talks strongly. I mean, practically everybody in this New York delegation was, very upset about it. And no one could understand it. No one really understood, except for politics.
Well, it was particularly disturbing to me because President Clinton really likes policy. And one of the reasons I like him, he's very involved in policy, understands it, is a hands-on manager. I believe one of the best pieces of work coming out of his administration was his original welfare bill that he put forward that had a tremendous focus and emphasis when the problem begins with teenage pregnancy and trying to prevent it and stop it at that point. It was a very thoughtful proposal that he put forward. And I know that he understands it, and I know that he understands what needs to be done to correct it and change it and improve it. And I was deeply disturbed over his
you're aggrieved
leadership.
by it. Tell me, Carolyn, how'd you get into politics?
It was not anything that I planned. When I was growing up, very few women were in public life. I remember Margaret Chase Smith was the only woman
Senator from Maine.
Yes, and I remember one time she was asked what would she do if she woke up in the White House, and she said, well, I would apologize immediately to Bess Truman and leave. And I don't think any woman would say that now, but times have changed tremendously. It's what I used to do when I had spare time. I was, I guess, a community leader, and I became the person that they call when there's a problem, the stoplights out, or there's overbuilding on the corner, and I became working very actively on the community level. And then I entered politics. I became an assistant first to the Housing Committee, and later on the staff of 2 speakers, and later the minority leader to the state Senate. So I professionally worked in the area. And finally, an opening came, and I decided that I would run for office. It was just a logical next step. And when I was on the city council, many of the problems that we confronted were really federal in nature. There's a limit to how much you can do on the city level when the policies are set on the federal level for housing, education, and funding formulas. And I was very disturbed over the Reagan-Bush years and ran against those policies, was elected.
City council.
Yes, to Congress after serving on the city council and seeing the problems that the policies were having for urban areas for New York City.
The idea of running every 2 years.
It's a challenge. It is a challenge.
It's a nice way of putting it. It's not troubling. I mean, before you get seated, you have to go out and raise money. And Sam Nunn said the other day that one of the reasons that he couldn't stay in the Senate any longer is that he was spending most of his time fundraising. It was abhorrent to him. He just didn't want to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And a congressperson goes out every 2 years. Before you start, you're finished. Should that law should it be that way?
Well, too much money is now dominating the political process, and I believe very strongly in campaign finance. I feel that we need to limit the influence and amount of money in American politics, and we should require more debates and public discussions like between the candidates like we're having now, as opposed to special interest money and fundraisers driving the system. It is. I likewise resent the amount of time that you have to spend raising money as opposed to working on issues and trying to help your constituents and help the region and city that you represent.
Peter Malone, who's a good man, I think he's a terrific guy, has a big problem now because Ron Lauder passed a bill that said the whole city council should be wiped out on the basis of term limitations. You know about that bill?
I do know about it.
What do you think about it?
Well, the Speaker has come forward with a proposal that's going to be on the ballot that will stagger the limitation so that there will be some people there with experience. I support his proposal. I feel that the best term limit is an election, and it's very easy if one wants to run for office. You need to just go out and get a certain number of signatures. Your name is on the ballot. And I feel that the best term limit is a free election. In Congress, I've just, as I said, I'll be running now. I'm running for my 3rd term. Over half of Congress is new, in that they were defeated or retired or whatever. But it's new, and I feel that experience, whether you're a teacher or a lawyer or a business person, experience is valuable, and usually major change and major initiatives pass because an experienced person knows what they're doing. I know when I first got to Congress, I'd have certain ideas about what needed to be done and how to do it, and Charlie Rangel would say, "Well, that's a good idea, but let me tell you that maybe we should do it this way." And I'm glad that the dean of our delegation has many years of experience that is very helpful to our city and to our delegation.
How often does you have your own caucus, don't you? New York's, all the representatives from New York. How often do you meet?
We meet practically every day on the floor, because you go down to the floor when you're in session and you talk to each other. And we meet once a month in a breakfast or a lunch. If there is a piece of legislation that is very important to the city or to the state, an emergency meeting or a meeting will be called. Oftentimes the governor or the mayor will send their representatives to speak to us about a particular issue that they feel is important. We've had several meetings on the regional plan and how we can jointly work together to move it off the drawing boards and into reality.
The Regional Planning Association?
The regional plan for New York and New Jersey and Connecticut. To modernize the port and build the Second Avenue subway and build rail access out to LaGuardia and JFK, things that we need to do to invest in the infrastructure of our region to keep us competitive. We have a lot of meetings, both structured and really not structured.
I think they ought to raise your salary. We're going to cut for a commercial break because she really works hard. I was on a plane with her the other day, and boy, she was working all the time. We'll be right back with Carolyn Maloney, and you'll see why she's in Congress. Maybe she has a hero heroine that she wants to tell us about. We'll be back.
New York, Chicago, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Boston, Bahrain, Cairo, Saudi Arabia, Moscow, Tokyo, Madrid, Paris, Geneva, Rome, Washington.
You're doing very well.
Steve, fast, quickly, your emotions before you miss the plane.
You got that 100%.
There were missiles fired at Tel Aviv, and now the reports are confirmed. What is going on, actually?
Hold it.
Okay, hold it.
You've seen some things that I'm sure will make you chill. Question, why did Israel not retaliate? She's found the house totally destroyed.
All on the Leon Charney Report, every Sunday at 5 p.m.
We're back. We're talking with Carolyn Maloney, and she's going to tell us if she has a political hero or heroine, and who that may be. Do you have a political hero?
Well, my favorite, I have several. My favorite, I would have to say, is Winston Churchill. And I think he's a strong argument, not for term limits. He lost more elections than he won, and he had a lifetime of achievement for his country in many different positions. And I particularly admire the period in his life when he warned against the Nazis and was treated almost like a criminal in his own country. They ridiculed him in the press.
His history is fascinating.
They cut off his, as a journalist, you can identify with this. The papers didn't like what he was saying, so they terminated his contracts. They tried to do all kinds of things to make him be more amenable to what was the vision of the day. But I admire his strength of vision, his standing up in many cases, and I used just that example, but many times in his career, he was like the lone voice standing up for what he believed, and in many ways eventually leading his country with him in that direction. I think he was a magnificent, brilliant, very brave leader.
Have you read most of his biographies?
I've read so many of his biographies.
Is that right?
I really have.
Why did he lose the election after he won the war?
Because the country was tired, and he was still a world leader and was very involved in world politics, and they were hungry. They needed to rebuild the industries of the country. They wanted someone home focusing on their problems. I likewise admire very much Alice Paul, the author of the Equal Rights Amendment. Probably never have more women owed so much to one single person. It was her politics that passed the right for women to vote, which was critical. And ironically, it'll because of the vote that I believe President Clinton will be reelected, the women's vote. He's leading by a 30-point margin, and believe me, Dole has worked hard for that 30-point margin. I also admire greatly Martin Luther King, and he's very interesting because he was never elected to office, yet he had a profound impact on the policies of our country and literally changed our country in so many ways, as did Alice Paul. And I find them both very interesting leaders because they were never elected, yet they took their beliefs and they moved really the country with them with a singleness of purpose.
Who's your favorite author?
My favorite author? Well, right now it's the Congressional Record. I'm reading it every day, all the time. I don't have a favorite author.
Do you think most Congress people read the Congressional Record every day?
I think we read the areas that we're working on. And it's not just it's a wonderful historical document. For example, issues repeat themselves. So you can pull up the Congressional Record for years back and see immediately the arguments on one side and the other as placed before Congress, and it's an important document.
How many hours a day would you say you work?
Oh, I'd say that most members of Congress work at least 14 hours a day. Never ends.
It doesn't end at all.
And the phone is ringing at home. And my husband says, well, you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I understand your problem, but what do you expect Carolyn to do about it at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Constituents call?
They call me at home. They call me at home.
And how to get you at home?
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And how many telephone calls you get at your office during one day? I'm not saying how many you answer, but how many calls would you get, basically?
Well, I have 4 offices, so I get hundreds. I have
Hundreds
an
and
office
hundreds
in Queens, I have an office in Brooklyn, and I have an office in Manhattan, and I have an office in Washington.
And a lot of people want to meet you in person. And how do you allocate your time? How do you determine who, you know, is going to be able to meet you or not? It's a tremendous burden on you. I see. I mean, you run to Congress, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You come back on weekends. You do fundraisers. You're political. A lot of people are calling you for everything in the world. It's a tough life, and very few people know how much sacrifice is given to this type of life. So now everybody wants to see you. How do you allot the time? How do you allocate it?
Well, it's very difficult, but particularly in this Congress, we've spent so much time in Washington. So we may be in Washington 3, 4, possibly 5 days. So it's impossible to meet with your constituents. When I was on the city council, I used to pride myself. I kept very solid constituent hours that anyone who came to my office could get in to see
like
me.
The Amir in Bahrain.
And I would just stay there until I met with them. I have an excellent staff, and you have to rely a great deal on them, and
How
they
big a
meet.
staff do you get?
We have roughly 20 people. Mm-hmm.
And that's in 4 offices.
Mm-hmm.
But you're the vortex, you're the center, so everybody has to communicate with you.
And we talk daily on problems. I get a daily update on all my mail, and I go through it, and I do still keep constituent hours, but it's impossible to see everyone who wants to see you. And the main thing is if a person has a problem, they want it taken care of. And my office gives excellent constituent service, and they take care of many problems. If they can't take care of it and they need me to intervene, to call the administration or whatever the problem may be, then I do it. But it's physically impossible to meet with everyone who wants to meet with you.
So what's the greatest joy about being a congressperson?
Oh, I think it's very exciting, helping people, not only on an individual basis, but truly the greatest way to help people is through public policy. And you can have a tremendous impact on helping people through education policy, through funding formulas, through policies that protect people. The anti-crime bill that we passed in Congress, many people have attributed to the national scaling down of the number of violent crimes in the country. Having an impact on public policy, playing a role in public policy, helping to change government or your country for the betterment, to help people. I mean, I think we passed some important bills. I passed it banning assault weapons, tremendously important. The Brady bill, tremendously important. Education formulas that are fair, tremendously important. The Family and Medical Leave Act. In my own life, I can remember when my first daughter, Christina, was born, being literally terrified I'd be fired just for having a baby. I remember it vividly to this day, calling the personnel office and asking about maternity leave and being told that we have no such policy. It's never happened before. That is a true story.
Really?
And now passing a bill that really allows so that men and women do not have to choose between a job and a sick child or literally having a child. That is major public policy, and to have been part of really the Democratic Party that stood for this bill for so long and worked so hard to pass it. And so to answer your question, having an impact on public policy that helps lives of people for the better.
Your impression of Hillary Clinton, has she impacted this country and women?
Oh, I think so. I think she is a very committed person. She's very intelligent, very hardworking, and very warm, and a tremendously nice person. If you look at her writings from her days when she was in college, you would just be astounded at how forward-thinking they were, particularly on children's issues.
So she's been a real help to President Clinton, not a negative in your opinion.
Oh, I don't believe that President Clinton would be president without Mrs. Clinton.
Is that right? The man behind the woman behind?
Well, I think that everyone needs support, and that she's been a tremendous a supporter to her husband and to her daughter. She has always helped him tremendously in his political career. Many people consider when there were allegations of infidelity on the president's part, Gary Hart dropped out of the race. Hillary Clinton went on national television and said, "This is personal between my husband and myself, and I'm supporting my husband." Many people believe that was a turning point in the presidential election that kept him as a viable candidate. And I feel that they have a relationship and a friendship that is similar to many modern marriages, where both spouses are working, both spouses are trying to raise their children, and the stresses that they have. And I think that she is a friend, an intellectual friend and partner to the president. And on a personal level, she's tremendously helpful to him in confronting the challenges that he faces. And many people will say that when he has a tremendous problem on whatever, the staff meets with him, and then he goes back and finishes writing the speech with Hillary or talking it through with her. Everyone needs a sounding board. Everyone needs support. I don't care who you are.
I spent a lot of time with President Carter, as an advisor to him, and I can tell you that Rosalind Carter was his last and most important sounding board. There was no one more important to him. They still have it today, by the way, wherever he moves. Now, obviously, you studied the women's rights movements, and you've studied a lot of women who've done well in politics. Did you ever meet Margaret Thatcher, or do you know much about her?
I never personally met her. I have not met her.
You admire her?
Very much so.
Golda Meir?
Oh, I think she was wonderful, yes.
What's the name of the Pakistani? She leads the country. Bhutto. These are... people talk about women never leading, but they were leaders. They were leaders 20 years ago.
I met her at the...
Indira Gandhi?
And I met Mrs. Bhutto at the Beijing conference.
Did you go to that conference?
Yes, I
How was that?
It was terrific. I was one of two delegates from the United States. I represented the Democratic side with Jane Harman and Connie Morella, and Chris Smith represented the Republican side.
How
and
was
in
the
fact,
food?
We didn't have time to eat. We were going so much, and
she
gave a terrific speech on women's rights, which was interesting. That it was not aired in China. People did not even know she was there.
Really?
Because she took a very strong stand on human rights, and only people could only get her speech on the Voice of America in China. It was not reported in the papers.
It's a great honor for you, though, to be one of two delegates.
And it was a great honor to be there. We passed a platform for action that was endorsed by 187 countries, and although it's not legally binding, it's certainly politically binding, and an important statement on moving women forward, not only in empowerment and in education, but access to capital. And we're having a really meeting on September 28th regionally across the country, where the Interagency Task Force will report on the platform for action and what steps we've taken to help women, children, and families in Congress and in the federal government.
Carolyn, would you believe we're about out of time? I mean, Bill Clinton's going to be reelected, Newt is out, Charlie Rang will become chairman of House Ways and Means, and you will get the Nazi War Crime Disclosure Act
I hope.
within the next 3 weeks. And November, probably people will send you back to Congress for your third term. And we found out that you basically have a love for Winston Churchill. It's been one hell of an hour, believe me. A fantastic hour with Carolyn. What you really get from her is the fact that she's truly committed. And it's not just slob and blob. I'm impressed. Carolyn, it's wonderful to have you on the show. And come back and visit us again.
Thank you.
Do not
Thank you,
forget
Leon.
us.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week with another Leon Charney report, probably from Israel. I'm off to Israel for 2-3 weeks to see what impact Bibi Netanyahu's handshake had with Mr. Arafat on his Likud party. It looks like he's having some trouble, and probably he should if they're idealists. We'll be back next week to tell you all about it.